Welcome back to the Triple Option here on 365 Sports. I'm Paul Catalina alongside Chris Allman. Chris, I mentioned before the break, we got to get into some other games because we really drilled down to Texas and Bama, and that's the win of the weekend, really. So
yep.
I'd like to say my beloved Florida State Seminoles and their 66-10 thumping of Southern Miss, but
anytime you can take down the Eagles, who basically disbanded their. No, that was UAB.
Yeah,
sorry.
That one was for Bobby Bowden, who lost on a Thursday night to Southern Miss and Brett Favre, and told that story at every dinner that he went to the rest of his life.
He made a lot of money to tell that story over and over.
Exactly. Yeah, Bobby, why do you like playing Thursday nights? Well, dadgummit, we played Thursday night on the road against Southern Miss against this quarterback named Brett Favre. Spelled his name weird.
That was half Bobby Bowden, half Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey.
Yeah.
There's a real morph of impressions there.
Yeah. But anyway, A&M in Miami. I thought A&M would just have too much depth for the Hurricanes eventually. But Miami carved A&M's defense up badly in that game. Of course, special teams played a role on either side of it. A&M blocked a punt that led to a touchdown. Miami missed some field goals, which never makes me sad. But they returned a kick for a touchdown.
Kids, if you're not sure what that was, Florida State lost to Miami several times on some missed field goals when Paul was a child.
Three wide rights and twice when I was at school. I was at wide right 3 and wide left 1. So,
okay.
So 3 wide rights and a wide left, and
okay.
Yeah, so I have some trauma. So
yeah, sorry to derail.
Every time they miss a field goal, I'm like, how do you like it?
Yes. Suck it, Huerta.
Even though it's Carlos Huerta, that guy was good.
He was good.
He was good. Now, every time they do, I'm just like, but like that one was in the second quarter. It was inconsequential to the whole thing.
But do you know, so I'm sorry to derail. This is how big those Florida State Miami games were when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Not to dredge up painful memories. Dan Mowry and Jerry Callahan, were those the kickers' names? Mm-hmm. I remember those. Like, that's how big those moments and those games were.
Yeah.
Two teams thousands of miles away that I was locked in on. So I understand the trauma, I guess is my point.
Look, Scott Bentley's the guy who changed the fortune of Florida State football. He made kicks, and they won a national title.
God bless him.
And then they had Sebastian Janikowski, who they should build a statue of.
They really should.
Although I think if they do, they're going to have to make some stuff go away.
Gonna need to scrub some records.
Yeah.
Maybe get some what's it called? What, deferred adjudication when they wipe your record?
Exactly.
Get some things done.
Like, no, that's never happened. But Miami, I'm not like, they're not back or anything. Like, that was a big win for them, though.
Yeah.
Like, them scoring 48 points in a game was really huge against an A&M team that's supposed to be better. And it might not change what A&M was going to do this year anyway. Like, they were 5-7 last year. Like, the goal for them should be to get back to their baseline of 8-4, which is where they live. That's still probably very realistic to happen for them. Their defense is worse than I thought it was at this point in the year. They need kind of to lock it up there. Offense was fine, but Miami they've got some players again all of a sudden, and that is due to the transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, I know you're not probably super fluent chapter and verse in Miami. They built that program recruiting the state of Miami.
Yeah.
Right?
Tampa South.
Are those transfers local, or did they go get the
they're
dudes
just going
from all
get
over
guys.
the country?
And again, they've got NIL, they've got Life Wallet guy who's just lets them walk into the vault and play supermarket sweep.
Yeah.
So, so they've got that part figured out. I will say, I do think it's like, I'm watching it, and it's not the Miami we grew up like. They were honoring Howard Schnellenberger, and because they're in the Dolphin Stadium, like, all their things that they have to put up, they just had to like put it on removable.
Oh yeah. So it's not permanent.
It's not permanent.
Yeah.
Like, they really need to get their own place again, and it's just it may be a thing that never happens, but
yeah.
But it was, and the stadium wasn't anywhere close to full, but the people who were there were getting after it.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that creates some of the Miami hype train, because the thing they did when they blew up the Orange Bowl and they went into what is now Hard Rock. That was Joe Robbie and Pro Player and about 7 other sponsor names over the years.
That's the same stadium? That's not a brand new stadium?
No.
I thought Hard Rock was brand new.
No, they've
Or
remodeled
newish.
it.
Oh, okay.
It's the same. It's the same foundation. Just it's got
torn
some
to the studs and rebuilt.
Yeah.
The games.
So they've been exactly.
Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they find the materials cheaper in Miami. Just boat washed up on shore with all this stuff. What do you know?
Again, not as an analyst, but where I see as I watched the Miami A&M game as much of as I could, and where I see A&M largely kind of getting crushed is the D-line.
I was surprised. Like, they played well early, but, like, look, they got Walter Nolden and Shamar Stewart, and, like, they've got guys that made plays. They really did get a little worn out in that game, and I was surprised. But Miami, like, they're a team you're going to have to watch for the rest of the year because they've got some athletes again and guys can make plays. And Tyler Van Dyke, who was awful last year and hurt and on his, like, 11th offensive coordinator, it felt like, in his tenure at Miami. Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator now, appears to have him pointed in the right direction, and that's scary for the schools in the ACC.
Do you mean Tyler Van Dyme, as his mom likes to call him?
Yeah.
I got beaten by that little tidbit after about 2 minutes. They showed his mom in the stands wearing a Van Dyme jersey.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Mom.
Yeah, there we go.
Way to stay low-key.
Yeah.
Is A&M – I see 2 contrasting things here, and this is really just a question that I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. Mario Cristobal is not he was good at Oregon, right? Like, we know he can coach. Jimbo, there feels like a dividing line between the old and the new, and it feels very, very prevalent right now, right? Your new blood, you've kind of got Dion leading the way, but you've got Cristobal and a lot of these younger guys. I mean, all the way down to G.J. Kinney, who was here a couple weeks ago. Then you have your Sabins and your Jimbos that are excellent coaches, but seem to not be changing with the times very well. Do you feel like that game was a little bit? I don't want to add more to it than it was.
No, but I do think that, like, that's been Jimbo's problem, is adjusting to change.
Yeah.
Look, he got in the transfer portal more than he has this year, and I think made some really good pickups in the transfer portal, but I think he's been slow to change, and that's what's kind of caught up to him. Yeah. Because it worked, and then it didn't.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, oh, I needed, I didn't. But Jimbo had a run of quarterbacks between LSU and Florida State that all were really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jamarcus Russell, Matt Flynn, Matt Mock, Matt Flynn and Matt Mock won national titles. Matt Flynn had a long NFL career as a backup. Made a lot of money because of Jimbo Fisher. He put E.J. Manuel, Christian Ponder, and Jameis Winston in the first round of the draft. Jameis Winston was the number 1 overall pick. Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 overall pick. So he's got 2 number 1 overall pick quarterbacks in his back pocket as a coach, as an offensive coordinator and head coach. And then he goes to A&M, and none of that happens. Yeah. And so you get to the point of, like, well, why is it not? And part of it is that he's running an offense that is antiquated. Yeah, and the change to Petrino, I couldn't tell you, like, if you pressed me, like, tell me what kind of offenses Bobby Petrino runs. I could tell you from memory, like, he ran some pretty high-scoring offenses, but it still feels like not a step back quality-wise, but you're reaching back in time to get someone to compete in a modern game. I think it was like, if you want to talk about X's and O's, like, personalities be damned in this, because you're not going to win if you made the A&M coaching staff a Girl Scout troop selling cookies, you would probably even pass up Thin Mints from them, because you're like, these guys are just crabby. It's Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino and DJ Durkin and Steve Adazio. Like, you've got a lot of guys that are, like, grumpy. They're just grumpy guys. Grumpy, like, questionable, like, in the case of Durkin and Petrino as 2 coordinators, like, really questionable things that have happened in their past. I mean, DJ Durkin and the kid that died when he was the head coach of Maryland, and that was because he was just negligent. All, like, those things, like, happen. So he, like, I think you're seeing like Mario Cristobal is like, he's taking everything. He has to take everything he can to make Miami work as fast as he can, because Mike Norvell is doing that in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. He's got to beat him if he wants to win the league. You know, Deion Sanders is going to recruit in every state in the country that has good players, and every coach has to ward him off. So you have to adapt, you know. So you've got all these coaches, and then if you're not fast to adapt like Jimbo Fisher, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck. And I think that's what we're seeing. He's trying to change, but how much patience do you have if you're Texas A&M, especially when you can look at other younger coaches and go, maybe that's what you need to do here. And I would say that if Jimbo Fisher ultimately doesn't win at A&M and they let him go, that they don't need to do the thing where who's the biggest possible name that we can find to hire. You need to say who's the best possible name that we can find to hire.
Yeah.
And who's been here before? No.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Jimbo wasn't there before. You know, like Dennis Frank, like that doesn't thing. Like those are the things you do. I would say who's the best possible coach, who runs the best possible system, who can recruit the best players, who is somewhere that maybe doesn't have the advantages that we have and winning. And if we gave him these powers, he would win.
Yeah.
So those are the things they need to look at. I have a guy in mind for that job, and he coaches in San Antonio. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think he would be fantastic at it.
Okay.
And I think that it's a hard place to, like, everywhere's hard to coach.
Yeah.
There's some places that are uniquely hard. And Texas A&M, who we talked about, the lion's share of this, are two of the hardest places to coach.
Yeah.
Maybe in the world. Like, it might be easier to coach Texas A&M than it is to coach Man U. Like, honestly, it is so tough to coach at A&M.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of things going on there. I do want to talk about Texas Tech and Oregon.
Okay.
Texas Tech had that upset loss at Wyoming. They welcome Oregon. It is maybe the most eyes that have been on Lubbock, Texas in quite a long time.
Since 2009.
Yeah, and came right down to the end of the game and threw a very unfortunate pick six and lost.
Yeah.
I don't see losses as net positives, but I see what everybody sees in Tech and that they're going to be better. But I do think that maybe we put the cart before the horse of this is a team that's going to take the world by storm in year 2 of Joey McGuire.
Yes. We all get enamored by Coach McGuire, and rightfully so, right? Like, he's a guy that you're like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever you got. I think if there's an 0-2 team in the country that can feel okay about the trajectory of things, Tech is one of them.
Yeah.
Now, the Wyoming loss, it sucks, but it's over and done with. You almost beat Oregon in your place. Again, I don't think they need to be there's no reason for them to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
They may need to reevaluate their timeline emotionally, the fans at least, and the money people, but they played really good offensive football in that game.
Yeah.
The tackling in that game was flipping atrocious.
Well, I mean, that was for everyone.
I know.
It was like they agreed before the game of, we're not going to hit that hard.
Yes. And perhaps I didn't play football, so I'm not going to sit out here and call kids weak. But my brother is a football coach, so I'm around football coaches who will very much call kids weak. And so maybe I just hear from them that kids are afraid to hit. But boy, that that Tech Oregon game, this is my get off my lawn bit. It's like, man, nobody would wrap up. Like, so many guys slipping out of tackles with guys around their ankles. Tech makes a few tackles. I mean, perhaps Oregon makes a few more. It's a bigger win. But Tech played great offensive football. Again, I sound like such a surly old guy, and I apologize to, I guess, surly old guys. But I can't get – Bo Nix is awesome. Tyler Shuck is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's really – the game is made to be a quarterback now. So when you're prolific and putting up numbers, I'm not like, wow, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really good game. I thought it lacked tremendously in some fundamentals. I wasn't all that wowed. I think both quarterbacks are really good. They're taking advantage of a system that caters to them. But I think Tech is going to be fine. I think if you're high on Coach McGuire and what he's doing, I don't think there's any reason to back off of that.
No. I just think that sometimes you like, the only difference is you thought at worst you'd be 1-1, and now you're 0-2.
Yeah.
Because you had a little, opening week
Hiccup.
Yeah. But they'll learn from those things and move on. I mean, Joe McGuire's the human shot of espresso, so they'll be fine. They'll be like, again, there's not been a coach.
He's the right amount of Dan Campbell.
Yes.
He's like, you're like, Dan Campbell might be a little bit too much. Joey McGuire's the right amount of Dan Campbell.
I think but Joey McGuire and Dan Campbell have similar things in that, he's got to make sure that nobody ever questions like, well, Lubbock's really far out.
Yeah.
Like he has to take all that out because it's really the only thing he's working against.
Sure, it's geography.
It's geography.
Yeah.
He can't change it. He just has to convince you it's not as big a deal as you've made it.
Yes.
Dan Campbell is dealing with years and years and years of futility.
Sure.
And so he has to be because he can't be, like poor Rod Marinelli who was up there as like, so those things, I think sometimes it gets to be a little bit much, or once you've gone through it and you start winning and they still do it, you're like, well, I get why you had to do this then.
Yeah.
But kind of like Georgia last year when nobody Kirby Smart took it. It was very brilliant and somehow convinced the players nobody thought they would do it when it was really nobody wanted them to. Everybody wanted the majority of the college football world wanted to see TCU win last year.
Right.
Because it would have been a much better story than Georgia winning back-to-back.
Right.
Another SEC team winning. It would have been this great story. People like to root for Cinderella. Everybody thought you could, Georgia. Just nobody wanted you to.
Yes.
There's a different thing.
For sure.
Yeah. No, everybody thinks you can. They don't want you to.
The nobody wanted us to, nobody believed in us trope is one. If I had to vote on what I'd like to retire.
Oh yeah.
That and then nobody respected us. Like we were talking a little bit about Shadur, and his bit before but going back, I watched Tech in Oregon and I thought this thing is going in the right direction, and you really are, save for one or two plays, a couple plays against Wyoming and a bad pick that was not an egregiously bad pick, right? I mean, Shuck throws that thing. He's under duress. Not the end of the world. So I think if I'm a Tech fan, of the 0-2 teams in the country, I think Tech fans can feel okay. Now, I'm not one of them. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not a diehard Tech alum. So maybe they feel differently.
Yeah. When we come back, teams that are in trouble, and we can start right here in the 254. They are 0-2 and 0 for their last 6. This is 365 Sports, the triple option.